Hi, welcome to the third lesson of DSK coding. We're going to be dealing with ArrayLists, methods, and objects in this one. And at the end of this, we're going to just make a month-end payment system, just to deal with a bit of objects, methods, and so forth. So first thing is, what is actually an ArrayList? Well, an ArrayList is a lot like your array, except an ArrayList doesn't have predefined amount of spaces. So previously in your array, you had a fixed amount of spots. You had to have 10 spots. It's always going to be like that. It's reserved like that. The array list is dynamic. It can become bigger or smaller as required. Once you fill up your array list to be 10 items, it'll go and find more memory in order to add the 11th item for it. And then the same thing when it reduces it, free some memory and allow the system to clean up again. So how do we actually use array lists? Well, first we have to import the ArrayList class, give it a type. This can be string, integer, objects, whatever you like, any primitive data type or any object type. Give it a name, is equal to a new array list. You can, if you want to, also put in the type just like you did here with string, but it's not required and it's a bit, it's not really nice to have because you make the code be longer for no reason. So how do we add items? Well, you do dot add the item that you want. Dot add the item that you want. And in each case of this, we're doing adding strings. So mylist.add string using this method. This is the parameter of first string, second string, third string. Then we, in order to access it, we do mylist.get its index position. So 1, 0, 1, that's this one here, second string. So that will return second string. Or we can also use .remove in order to get rid of 1, which we do mylist.remove2 means 0, 1, 2 will remove third string. Then in order to clear the array list, because we don't want any of these objects anymore, but we don't want to delete the array list yet, we can use mylist.clear in order to clear up memory. So we can reuse that array list. We can also set it equal to null. It does exactly the same thing, but then we'd have to redefine a new array list right afterwards in the next line. So this way it will stay as an array list and it'll just clear out the objects in it. Okay. So the second part of this lesson is methods. Now you've already been using methods, the scanner input here that we have. And what's in it is that you can then write the object name, the instance that you used. I call it input. Some people use sc for scanner. And dot next. This is a method. Any method is anything that is after this, after the instantiation and uses a dot. That's a method, next, and has brackets. Inside there, there's parameters. If you actually look at the public string next, it looks like this. It's public. There are three access types: public, protected, and private. Public means anyone outside of a class can access it. We'll get there in a moment. Protected, anything that's inherited can also access it. And private, only anything within that class can access it. And then there's another modifier called static. That means it will never change. Most of the time we rarely use this unless it's something that's consistent or static across the entire program. Then there's a return type. In this case, it's string here. You can also have void to say no return type. If you look over here, it returns token, which is a string token. And the other thing is a method name, which we call next, and then parameters, which is in these brackets. In this case, next doesn't have any parameters, but we could have parameters like our mass.random that we have. Or up here, if you look up here, there's new scanner system.in. This is the parameter. Okay. Then we have objects. Objects is just a blueprint that we then create an instance of, like scanner. And we can have constructors. Constructors are things that do not have a return type, void or whatever, but they must have the same name as the class. So public class text twister, or whatever you call your lesson. Public text twister parameters. This is a default parameter as it has no parameters in it. So this will be constructed every time we just write new scanner without any inputs in there. Or if you want a specific input, we can then add it in the brackets here as a parameter. These classes can also have methods. What this public string, so this is public, returns a string, so anyone outside of this class can use it, and returns an empty string, which is what I called it, no input parameters, and returns an empty string. So if it does not have void, so if this was anything except for void, it must have a return parameter, must have return. If it has void, there may not be a return. All right. The same thing happens to these constructors. They do not have a return. They allow us to access in static context. So now onto coding. All right, so let's first start with what is an array list. Well, we're first gonna create an array list. We can create a list string. My list is equal to new array list. Right. So currently it doesn't know what it is. We need to import the class, which is the java.util.ArrayList. Yeah, it's imported now. Alt enter. And then we're just going to add, okay, actually let's change this slightly. And let's change it to just make a list of names. So we want to get some names. So we're just going to add John. And we're just going to duplicate that downwards. Peter, Harry, and maybe Bob as well. Sorry. Bob. Or Robert. Make it Robert. Okay. So now, in order to look through all of this, as we had before, we had I is equal to 0. I is less than names. Instead of using a length, we use size for array lists, because that's how many returns the number of elements in this list. And I++. And we just want to print out names.get the index position I. That's all we want to do. So all we're doing is printing them all out. So we print out John, Peter, Harry, and Robert. Okay. So one thing we can do though with array lists, or even arrays, is that we could just say, first say its type, give it a name that we want to call each object that we loop through. So this individual name, all the array list names. And then we can just print out the name. It's exactly the same as before, except of using name.get and then names.get and then the position. This will automatically just go through each one, so we can just use name. So once I get I, we use name. Okay, exactly the same thing. John, Peter, Harry, Robert. Okay, just to make it a bit easier. So now say we don't want to have the third. We want to remove Harry. So Harry is names. So now we will have no Harry in our list. John, Peter, Robert. There's no Harry. We can remove it either by its value or by its position. Harry is 0, 1, 2. Harry's the second person. Let's remove Harry. John, Robert, Peter, Robert. If we were to comment this out, we have Harry back. Okay. And now what happens if we clear? Take that and run that. There's absolutely nothing in this array list. They're all empty. Okay. So arrays is very simple. Array lists are very simple. You don't need to worry about memory allocations and so forth with arrays. Arrays will always be faster though. So this is better if you need a dynamic list. If you know exactly how many you are going to create or how many positions you need, always use an array. If you don't know how many you need, use an array list. Yeah. This is a combination of arrays and lists, as the name suggests. So onto objects and methods. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create, okay, let's just keep this array list for now. We're going to create an array list, an object or a class. We first need to create something. So what we want to do is we want to create something like an employee, because we want to be able to calculate all the different, let's say the entire payout at the end of the month that we have to give for everyone in our employee role. So let's say we have to pay the teachers. Let's say we have to pay 3 teachers, and we have to pay a cleaner. Okay, and they each earn a different salary and so forth. And we're going to then make this dynamic as well. They all have a name, first name, last name. So what we do is we go to the source, the lesson 3 on the package, this folder. We click new and Java class. Now we give it a nice name, first letter capitalized, and we're going to call it the employee class. Okay. So it'll look like this, package, whatever the lesson is called, whatever the project is called, public class employee. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write private, and and I'll explain this in a moment. And we have a name, first name, surname. Sorry, not typing again. And then they must all have type string and salary. Okay, so you can also use comma in order to separate your different types, different variables. But remember, they must all be of the same type in a line. The moment you get to this semicolon, that means that's the end of all the types. So you can only define string once, and you can keep adding strings. String 3, string 4, and so forth. You do the same thing with integers or any variable type that you wish, doesn't matter. Okay, so what does private mean? It can only be used within this public class. Nothing outside can access it. We'll get there in a moment as well again. So now if we check here, we're going to create a constructor called employee. And it has to be the exact same name as this public class up here. Public employee, public class up there. So this is an empty constructor. I do nothing. Okay. So if we create an employee, same thing, it's the same way that we create a scanner. We just type employee. My first employee ever equals new employee. And now we have our first employee. What is my first? Oops, apologies. I wrote 7 there. Save. What does it do? Absolutely nothing, because this constructor does nothing. So we give it the class name. This is the object name in terms of the blueprint it's supposed to use. Give it a name. We call it my first employee, and we create a new instance of it, our blueprint, with no parameters. Okay. So what we actually want to do though is we want to create an employee with, sorry, I can't talk at the same time, is first name. And of course we have to give the type string, surname. And we need to give it a double called salary. What was a double again? Double is a certain primitive data type that looks like double primitive types Java. One moment. We have this list. A double here is just a number that has 64 bits that allows decimal numbers. Floats only up to 32 bits, doubles to 64 bits. As we're dealing with money, always use a double salary. Now we can make our first name equal to first name. All right. Surname equal to surname. And salary equal to salary. Okay. So let's just make this let's just add the to each of these, just to make it a bit easier. Just for a moment, just to explain something. Thank you. And at the end of this, it prints out the first name, surname, and salary. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to use this in there. This is the constructor. So the first thing, we're just going to do that, and then we're going to create a. These are all currently private. Let's make them public. Explain something. Sorry that I'm going roundabout manner of doing this. And if you look here, and we can also give. We have our first name, Jason, surname, my surname, and the person gets a nice double, so 200.00 is a salary. Okay. Now if we print it out, again, it does nothing. So what we can do now is we can use that. We can actually spell this correctly. We can use any of those public things, such as the public variables that we just got. First name, surname, and salary. So let's print out the person's first name. Now if we were to run this, Jason, which we defined over here, and was defined as the first name. Now, why is this orange and why is this green? Well, this has to do with the fact that these, how the variables are scoped. Within this class, these first name variables exist. The moment you get out of this class up here, they don't exist anymore. They've never been defined. They've only been defined within this small scope. So you guys are currently using at being 7. That sadly doesn't have the coloring, which is sad. You can also use this as a keyword. What this does is it defines within this class. So as you can see, if I write this, one of the options that come up is salary, which is what we're using. So we don't actually need to have the first name here. We can the first name, we can just call it the same as the other one. Surname, save, and salary. Save that. So we can just have the same names. There's no confusion anymore. We know which one we're referring to by using the word this. So this makes it also fast to type, because instead of saying the entire first name, we can just hit this and that. Select that straight. It can be a bit faster. Okay. So this is a bit useless though. I mean, why can't we just use a variable straight? Why can't we just say JSON? Well, what this allows us to do is it allows us to collect multiple datas, a lot of data, and group it together so that we can access it later at another stage when we need it. A good example of this is if I need to have a second employee, and this employee is called Peter. A second employee. And Peter earns $160. Okay. So instead of my employee.first name, we want to also get the second employee's name, which was my second employee. I want to print out that person's first name. So now we have Jason and Peter. Amazing. And instead of the first name, we want to get the person's surname. Oh, great. My surname, just the one over here. Now, how does this really help us? Well, instead of using defining a variable for each of these, which we can do, we can also group this. So we can do names.add my first employee. If I can actually type this correct, this needs to be the correct type. This is of the employee type, because we just created an employee over here. And let's add the second employee as well on top of that. Okay. And instead of printing it out like this, we're just going to print out as you type, give it a name, it's an employee, and I don't like the names. Let's recall it to employees. And it'll store the employees list. Yeah, so each individual employee, and we're just going to print out each employee's first name. Then we're going to print out their surname, employee.surname, and then we're going to print out salary is, employee.salary. Okay, print this out. Yeah, so I know. My surname salary is 200. Peter's my surname is salary is 160. This is a bit annoying. I'll do a string format soon. Okay, so as you can see, we then can group them up really nicely. We can have multiple employees on this array list, and then we can create 300 employees, 1,000, a million, infinite employees that we need. And then we can also remove employees out of our payroll. So let's give the people's surnames whatever their occupation is. Well, actually, no. Let's add their occupation to this. Occupation. String occupation. And then this occupation is equal to occupation. So we're just saving it, or setting it equal. Now all these are incorrect because there is no constructor with the same parameters as defined over here. So we need to have their position as well. So this person is a teacher, and this person is also a teacher. And then we need to make another, let's make a third profession and give that a janitor or something. and let's make them Robert. Instead of having Jason, Albert, green, and orange, just so that we don't have the same surname multiple times. And then we just connect the person for being a whatever their position is. Employee dot position. Occupation, sorry. Print this out. Jason Colbert's salary is 200 for being a teacher, and Peter's is for being a teacher. We didn't add this here to the array list, so let's add that too. Save that. Robert's orange salary is 160 for being a janitor. He earns as much as a teacher. Good on you, Robert. Okay. Now, there's a problem here. This way we can currently access and mess with this public means that we can access it outside of the class. As you can see here, we're accessing the variable first name directly from the employee. Now, the problem with that is what happens if you want to set some rules or something along those lines. You don't want anyone outside of your class, they don't know what the hell is a first name, or they don't know what occupations are allowed, or something along the lines, or there's a salary band, or they could directly access your class and then change it. So we did something that's called private. Now if we check here, whoops, sorry. Now if we check here, you can see that this is not accessible anymore because it has private access. That means that nothing can directly access first name. Now the problem with that is that then we can't get the person's first name, surname, and class and occupation and salary. So what we can do is we can create a public method. And we can create a string, and all the string does is print out, or not print out, return all variables as a list, basically, because we wanted to do exactly this. And it returns this dot first name, this dot surname, this dot salary, and the employee's occupation, and we need to that bracket. So return all variables. So we're going to print out employee dot. Oh wait, look, there's a nice new method that showed up that we just made. Return all variables. Enter. Let's save that. So we check here, does exactly the same thing. Oh great, prints out exactly the same variables. Because when it loops through, it gets the first name, the surname, the salary, and the occupation. These variables are defined for each instance of this object over here. My first employee, my second employee, my third employee. Now, it's a bit annoying that we can't actually make sure that the person's salary is monthly, yearly, or whatever. What if the salary here was their hourly rate? And we want to see how much money they earn per month. Okay, 160 is quite a bit of a salary, but let's say they're very, very good teachers and janitors. So what we can do is we can create a public hourly, or double first, type hourly to monthly converter. And all it does is takes the double and daily salary. Oh, hourly salary, sorry. And since there's an average of, let's say, how many days are in that month. Actually, it doesn't matter how many days are in that month. Let's say there are 22 working days per month on average. That's just a general rule we're taking. We're just creating it because that's what we wanted to do. And all it's going to do is it's going to return a double. And it's going to take hourly salary, multiplied by 8 for a full day, and then multiplied by 22 working days. Because that's what we've decided, how many working days there are per month. And there's a general rule for this, and I'm just taking this as 22 for now. So if we check hourly to monthly, that double salary is actually now the hourly salary. We can make this do that. Hourly monthly. You can ignore that for now, it's fine. So this salary takes the hourly salary rate and creates it into a monthly one. 8 times 22. So instead of having these very low numbers of 160, 200, it's going to be quite high. 35,200. Actually, it's not that much. for being a teacher. Sounds about right for a senior teacher. 28,000 for being a teacher and 28,000 for being a janitor. Lovely. So it automatically converted them for us. Now what is public? Currently it's public, which doesn't need to be because we don't need to be able to access it from here. Because what we can currently do is like, we can check something along the lines of what is 200 Rand per hour in monthly? And the answer is employee dot, sorry, we can create a new employee, my third employee is equal to new employee, pass 200 per man per hour, so it's a teacher again. Wait, we already have a third employee, my fourth employee. Alright, we do that, and we get the hourly to monthly, which was 200. And actually, we don't even need to create this entire thing. We can just use my third employee because it doesn't actually use the variable of 160. It'll use a variable of 200 because we go to the employee class here and we go straight to this method of hourly to monthly, where it takes the double as a parameter integer, double parameter intake, and a return double out. If you check here, 200 per month per hour in monthly is 35,200, exactly the same as up here. Doesn't matter that it was the posted salary is 160 per hour because we're using this public method. Now we'd rather not make this public because we don't want to tell people how we convert our stuff. So we make it private so no one else knows. So they have to get it through our different methods. Now what we did in order to do that is we created getters and setters. Now what is a getter? Well, it's literally, as the name says, a getter. String get first name. And all it's supposed to do is return the first name. Okay. So now instead of having to use this return all variables function, we just want to get the person's first name, we can get the first name. Apologies. Get first name. Get first name. Now if we play this out, Jason, Peter, and Robert. Yay, it worked out well. Now, what if their name, we want to change their name? Well, that's called a setter. Public void. Void means there is no return. Set first name to a string. First name. And all it's going to do is this dot first name is equal to first name. So instead of being everyone's name being that or whatever, Robert and so forth, we're going to say set first name, and we're going to be like, I changed it. Save. All their names are I changed it because this happens just before it's printed out when it loops through the list. Because we set it over here, we created a setter, set first name, and all it does is change the first name. Okay, so now we got the person's entire monthly salary and so forth. We created that printout for it, Jason, Robert, and so forth. Well, we don't actually want to do that. We want to get all the variables. This should actually be called toString as a general rule for this type of thing. So for being a janitor, their monthly salary. That's the monthly salary. And you want to say how much of it is taxes or something like that. So we want to break this down. And instead of saying this is a salary, being in that occupation, we're going to do something like, we're going to add, firstly, on a new line, how much X is taxes. Take home is that much. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to print out how much is taxes and how much is their take-home salary. So now we can go create a private function, and all it's going to do is calc taxes and take double of the, let's say, hourly salary. Double of salary, actually, because we're doing monthly salary. And we're going to return, we need to return two variables, but sadly Java can't do this. We need to calc taxes and private double calc take home salary. And this here is going to return, let's say 40% of our money goes to taxes. Their monthly salary, so we're going to get this dot their salary, which is the monthly one, and 1.4 because 40%. And we're going to take the take home, will be the exact opposite, will be 1.6. Save. So we're going to get the class from this, and we're going to get their taxes. So we're going to get taxes, and we're going to do salary out of that. This is required plus. Take home is plus this dot calc take home. Also has salary. I'll break that out. For being a teacher, 14,000 is taxes. Take home is 21,120. All right. So, but the thing is that taxes don't scale directly at 40%. They scale linearly. So we're going to be making if function of this. So if the salary is greater than 40,000, they have a very large salary, then it's going to be, they'll pay the full maximum, this one here. Right. Also, if the salary is between about 30,000, let's say it's 30,000, then return the salary times 1.3, and so forth. So for every 10,000, they pay that much extra. So this will be 20,000, greater than 10,000. I also don't pay any taxes. Okay. If it's greater than that, then they pay no taxes, 20%, 10%, no taxes. And then we can actually remove the calc take home salary. Instead of taking the double salary, this will return the salary according to the taxes, the salary minus this dot calc taxes, and we're going to put this dot salary in there. Because we don't want to calculate the same thing twice. We don't want to create the same function to do the same thing again. So this take-home salary, remove that, because it doesn't have an input parameter anymore. As well just shown over here. And we can check here. This person here owns 35,000, therefore he's paying 10,000 in taxes. He's paying it the full 40%. If you want to use a calculator. 35,200.00. Oh, sorry, I'm a programmer calculator. 35,200 times 0.4 is 14,080. Why did we get that? Let me figure that out quick. Oh wait, sorry. It's 30%, isn't it? Because they have 35,200. My bad. 0.3 is 10,560. That wasn't the 28,000 mark. So 28,160 times 1.2 is 5,632. And if they earned even less, then they would go to all the other ones. So let's make somebody who only earns 8,000 or 9,999. Let's make it, and instead of creating these variables, we can also just create a new employee in here. Y assigned to something, if we can just do it straight. And my last guy, and his surname gets, in order to make that monthly, I don't know what that is. That's just, we did by 22.8. So 9,999 divided by 22 divided by 8. 56 rand per hour. So 30 is fine. Oh, and his job is to be a tester. And we need to close the bracket. All right. Let's check that tester. My last guy, his surname's monthly salary is 5,280 for being a tester. He pays 0 in taxes, and his take-home salary is 5,280.0. We can remove this here because we don't use it anymore. So as you can see, ArrayLists are very, very powerful because we can just keep adding dynamically as we need it. So we can, instead of making it so that we only have, I don't know, 10 spots, and oops, we got there, we have to recreate a new array that is a bit bigger with more spaces, or we create an array with 1,000 spots, even though we don't use it in memory, then we can just create an array list instead. So in those brackets, or in those greater than and less than, we just write the type. We create a new array list, then we add to our array list, and at the end of it, we can clear it if we wanted to. Of course, you don't need to clear it at the end of the program because it automatically clears it when the program ends. Including the garbage collector will automatically pick it up. So we don't need to worry about that too much. Unless your program is using a while true loop, so that's an infinite loop, you might want to clear up then. So the compiler might be able to test to check if it's empty and has to empty it. You can make it equal to null to be a bit faster if you are running into memory constraints. Most of the time you don't need it, so don't worry about it. Okay, so what I want you to do is, instead of making it so that this is all individually created by us on runtime, I want you to create, for the first 3, you can leave these 3 here, and I want you to give the user an option. So the first thing I need to do is ask the user an option. They decide to remove, they can either add employee, edit employee, or delete employee. Or remove, sorry, let's make it remove. And as a 4th option, they can calculate taxes, or they can calculate payroll of everyone. So how much do they pay in total for every single employee? Calculate end of month payroll for everyone. So all of this here is, it gives you all the taxes, and it gives you all the amount of take-home salaries, and it gives you the entire the daily salary, or monthly, sorry, the monthly salary of everyone at once. So currently we have 35,200, 28,000, 28,000, and 5,280. The sum of all these is the monthly salary at the end, and then we want to know how much is the taxes and how much the take-home is for everybody, just so we can get a general chart of our organization. So then, how would you do this a bit? Well, the first thing is you need to create a while loop in order to create a menu, while loop for menu. And this will print out 4 options. You can create a method in this in order to do it for you. You can even create methods in here. Something like private print menu. And all this does is print out your options. So apologies for my writing. Void. And all this does is print out your options. 1, add employee. 2, edit employee, and so forth. 3, keeps going. And then all you have to do is write print menu when you need to create the menu at the beginning. Non-static method, private static void, because this never changes. This is always the same, this menu. So you can make it static. There's no worry about that. Okay, and then you print that out, and then the user can take an input. You use your scanner, input is equal to scanner, system.in, and then if input next equals I.1. Then you can do the first option, do employee, do add employee method, which would be create an employee here. So you create your employee list up here, employees dot add employee, blah, 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 blah. Of course, after doing all the prompts in here, yes, okay. All the employee prompts in there and so forth. Okay, so that keeps going like that. Then the fourth option is just using a for loop that you have over here, using a variable just to keep track of it all, and then printing out the entire salary list. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed this. This lesson is a bit more unstructured than the previous ones. I'm sorry about the other one taking so long. The other one has a bug in terms of how the video renders. I'm probably still going to upload it as is. You already probably watched that one before you watched this one and noticed it. This one's a bit more unprepared because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. Didn't do any rehearsals or anything like that for it. And I kind of am running out of time before Wednesday. I hope to actually just go through this with you guys again during the lesson. So if you feel like you're having problems, I will be explaining it again. Don't worry too much about it. This is a topic most people struggle with at the beginning quite heavily because it just changes the way you think. And yeah, hope to see you all then. In the description, I'll add this code to my GitHub. In order to use GitHub, you just go to github.com. Let's go to lesson 2. DSK coding 2018 lesson. It'll be lesson 3, but it's lesson 2. And you just click on the download and you download zip. I currently have a theme running, so it looks a bit different than you do. It's like this for you guys. Just click the download zip. And then you can extract that straight into a folder. Lesson 2. That's all your stuff. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and good luck.